One of the most premier companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam happened to be Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Many of you know him as Umar ibn Al-Khattab. Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he narrates that he was introduced to Islam way before the very famous story of him listening to Surah Taha. In fact, Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, by his own admission, used to say that in the early morning, I used to go and hide behind some tents or some walls and listen to the recitation of the Quran through the voice of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. As Umar, he says, one time Rasulullah was reciting Surah Al-Haqqa. My dear brothers, for those of you that don't know, Surah Al-Haqqa, just linguistically, is an incredibly powerful surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, Al-Haqqa, Mal-Haqqa, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحَاقَّةُ كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ وَعَادٌ بِالْقَارِئَةِ فَأَمَّا ثَمُودُ فَأُهْلِكُوا بِالطَّاغِيَةِ وَأَمَّا عَادٌ فَأُهْلِكُوا بِرِيحٍ صَرْصَرٍ عَاتِيَةٍ. Listen to the rhythm, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is invoking almost fear and shock and awe in the listener. So Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu is listening to this, and his shock and his awe is improving and increasing when all of a sudden Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he looks and listens, and he says, what is this? The very next ayah that Rasulullah recites is, Innahu laqawlu rasulin kareem. Indeed, this Quran is the recitation of a noble messenger. He hears this, and Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala, who's not a Muslim yet, says to him, Ma ash'arahu, into his brain, and he's speaking to himself, barely audible to even himself. Ma ash'arahu, what a huge poet, what an incredible poet, what a poet. All of a sudden, the very next ayah Rasulullah recites is, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ الشَّاعِرِ قَلِيلًا مَا تُؤْمِنُونَ. It is not the prose of a poet as you claim, yet you hardly have any faith. Now Hazrat Umar is even in more shock and in more intrigue. And so he says, Ma asharahu, what a magician. How can he hear me from so much distance when it is barely even audible to me? It is my own thoughts. The very next ayah that Rasulullah recites is, وَلَا بِقَوْلِ كَاهِنٍ قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Nor is it the mumbling of a fortune teller, yet you are hardly mindful. Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala who is reeling from this, that Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is responding to him from such a distance to the thoughts in his own brain. When the very next ayah Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam recites is Tanzilum mir Rabbil Alameen. It is a revelation from the Lord of the worlds. It is in this way that Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu began to become familiar with the Quran and with the personality of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.